Hey everyone, welcome into the Flippin' Hippos YouTube channel. I'm Star. If you're new here or you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and don't forget to hit the thumbs up as you're listening along today. Today we are doing the next episode in my Unpopular Reseller Opinion series, and we're going to be talking about delisting and relisting, or doing your unsolds. I've heard it referred to as many different things, but basically it's ending active listings and then relisting them to make them new listings. And a lot of folks do this on a lot of the different selling platforms. eBay, Poshmark, Mercari, Grailed, Citizen, Etsy. And a lot of people think that it does help increase their sales and help their items from not becoming stale. It is kind of a controversial topic because the eBay experts and CEOs have come out and said that delisting and relisting actually hurts you in the algorithm and they don't recommend doing it. And there's a lot of other experts in the field that I'm not going to call out by name or by where they work, because I'm not here to argue with people or tell people you're wrong. I'm just here to tell you why we disagree with everyone else in the industry. The experts all say not to do it. They say if your listing is stale 3 months down the road, 9 months down the road, it was stale to begin with. And I highly disagree with that. And I'm going to tell you why. But first, before we get into eBay, let's talk about the other platforms. Because most of the people in the industry will agree that delisting, relisting does work for other platforms, other selling platforms, and that it should be done on Grailed, Mercari, Poshmark, etc. It is just eBay that is the big contender for the controversial opinions. And I say opinions because, again, when I get into why I disagree with all of the experts, what they say isn't end all be all. It's an opinion at the end of the day. But let's talk about Grailed first. So Grailed has this bump system where they want you to ever so often bump your listings, which knocks down the price by about 10%. And they want you to keep doing that consistently over time to keep your listings at the top. So with Grailed algorithm, if you're not bumping your items, they are being pushed down in the searches over time. After a month, even, they're so far down. But we don't like to bump them because that just keeps lowering your price to like rock bottom prices. And I don't want to start too high either. I am going to be putting out another video later next week on our pricing strategies and how we decide what we're going to price items at and shipping and all that on the other platforms. So I'll get into that pricing more in that video. But with Grailed, we don't like to start our, I don't want to start Miss Me jeans at $90 so that I can bump once a week and knock the price down. So we don't even really do the bumping. When we first started experimenting and listing on Grailed about 4 years ago, we did do the bumping, but our prices just got lowered way too quickly, way too low. And when we started them higher, nothing sold either. So instead of participating in the bump system, we really just let Grailed be a set it and forget it platform, except that we do delist and relist. With Mercari, you almost have to delist and relist because of the way their offer system is set up. So, on Poshmark, for instance, if I like your item today, you can send me 10% off. If Keith likes your item tomorrow, you can send him 10% off. I won't see Keith's offer and he won't see mine, because in order to send a second offer on Poshmark, it has to be 10% lower than a historical offer. But that's only per individual. So then if a third person, Baby Yoda, liked your listing the next day, you could send him 10% off and Keith and I wouldn't see it, but he would. The difference with Mercari is every single time you send an offer, even if it's to a new liker, it has to be 10% lower than the last historical offer. So if I liked it today, if it's a $20 listing, you could offer me 18. If Keith likes it tomorrow and you want to send Keith an offer, it has to be 16. And then on the third day, it would have to be 14 to Baby Yoda. It has to be 10% lower every single time, even if it's new likers. and it continues to go down from there. So one of the ways we contend with that is I don't really send out offers on Mercari until I have 2 or more likers on an item. So if I see that only one person has liked it, I leave it alone. When I see that there's 2, 3, or even more, then I'll send out my first 10% offer just to keep it from going too low too quickly. And then we delist and relist, which also helps with that because when it's a new item, you can go back up to the first 10% off the original price. Poshmark, everyone pretty much agrees in the reselling community that ending and delisting on there absolutely does help your listings. It does help increase your visibility. It helps your searches in the algorithm, and it helps items sell. The offer system on Poshmark, I actually like the way it's set up because, again, every time someone new likes an item, I can send a 10% offer out on the item, and only the new likers will see it. I can send a 20% out, and then everyone would see it. But items do get pushed down pretty quickly in Poshmark. Really, the only way to raise your visibility there, you got to have good pictures and good titles, just like any other platform, but you got to share a lot. And a lot of people don't like to share a lot. So one of the ways to contend with that, some folks do the edit next list, which is where you go in and edit an item, don't really change anything, and then you just do next list. And it like acts like you edited the item and pushes it up. But a lot of people say that don't work. I've never really had success with it. I did experiment with the edit next list way back in 2019. I didn't have any success with it. I do have success with ending items completely on Poshmark and then relisting them as new items. So you can try the edit next list. That's kind of like the update option on eBay, which we're going to talk about in a second. I personally don't see the point. If you're going to edit next list, why not just end relist, right? Because then it's still going to push it up. It's going to be a new listing, and you're going to get all the benefits of being a new listing. I do believe from experience and from experimentation and just from what we've seen that most platforms give new listings preferential treatment in the searches. If it's a brand new just in listing, it's going to go to the top of the searches, and that's on any platform. So when your items are older, that gives them a chance to come in as new and be seen again. So that's, talking about Grailed, Mercari, and Posh. Even with Citizen, we've seen success when I end older items and relist them. eBay is a whole different monster, and there's a whole different school of thought with that. And I think part of the problem is that their experts have come out and said, well, delisting, relisting is not actually good for the algorithm. And they can say that all they want, but actual experience and data in our business and our experience proves them wrong. I think eBay items get stale even if they say they don't. I'm here to tell you if 20, 50, 100 eBay CEOs or executives knocked on my door right now, rang the doorbell, and came in here to come on video with me, and there were 100 of them, and they were all saying, oh, it doesn't get stale, stuff doesn't, I'm here to tell you, I would sit here and disagree with 100 of them to their faces. I disagree. When items are new on eBay, brand new, I'm not talking delist, relist, but you just came home from the thrift store and you got all your jeans washed, measured, photographed, and now you're going to list them, and they're all brand new listings. They get preferential treatment in the searches. New stuff gets pushed up. It's brand new. eBay is going to show it off. If it's been sitting there for 3, 6, 9 months, a year and a half, doesn't it make sense that it would get pushed down? Because new stuff is always coming in. So if for whatever reason, let's say you have a pair of silver jeans that just isn't selling, maybe it's a smaller size, maybe you had a typo in the title and you didn't notice it, maybe your pictures weren't that great, and 3 months later, how many new pairs of silver jeans have come in above yours? Did you see what I'm saying? So I think that over time, yes, it does get lowered down. It does get stale. I don't care how many people tell you it doesn't. I'm here to tell you my opinion is items will get stale. New stuff gets preferential treatment. Old stuff does get pushed down in searches over time. And here's the other thing. If you have a lot of watchers on an item, just a bunch of looky-loos or tire kickers, that tells the algorithm everybody's looking at your item, but nobody's buying it. That means it's not desirable. If you have a lot of really old items that folks are looking at, they're clicking on it, they're clicking on the listing, they're looking at the pictures, they're reading the description, maybe they're watching it, but you have all these people clicking on your item, but no one follows through with the actual purchase. That tells the algorithm, whatever that item is, people are looking at it, but no one is willing to click through and follow through and buy it. Meaning it's not desirable. If hundreds of people, dozens of people, 5 people are looking at your item and no one's buying it, it makes sense that the algorithm would think, as much as an algorithm can, why are all these people looking at this eBay open tumbler, but no one ever actually buys it? It's been sitting there for a year, 6 months, however long, and no one's buying it, but everyone's looking at it. That means something's wrong with it. It's not desirable. Nobody wants your item. That doesn't necessarily mean that, but that's what the algorithm would assume, and then your item would get pushed down even further in the searches. So before I get into the proof and the data and our experience with the delisting, relisting, I do want to address one very important thing. I think a lot of the people in the industry, the experts that tout, well, if your item's stale 9 months from now, it was stale to begin with, they're just repeating what they've heard eBay executives say. They're just repeating what they've heard other experts say, and that's cool. Cool story, bro. I like to experiment for myself and have data, and you do what works for our business, and you have to too. You have to too. I'm sure that there's things that I say are best business practices, or things that I say that Keith and I do for our business that doesn't work for you, because you have to do what works for you. If you sell a lot of heavy items, free shipping, free returns probably doesn't work for you, but that's something that I teach is best business and what we do to help increase our success and our sales and our profits, right? So at the end of the day, the bottom line is you have to do what's good for you, but don't just be a parrot. Don't hear something and say, well, all these experts in the industry. Experiment for yourself and figure it out for yourself and find out what works best for your business. Don't just repeat what you hear other people saying or parrot everybody. And the other big thing I want to address is there is a difference in the selling platforms. I kind of feel like everyone agrees the delisting and relisting is good for all the other selling platforms. It's eBay that we all have this discrepancy or this controversy over. And I think that's because, one, again, with the parroting, well, an eBay executive said it on some podcast, so it must be true. Or because the people that are touting this as fact aren't selling used clothing. So a lot of the people that I hear saying delisting, relisting doesn't work, don't do it, are selling very unique, one-off, sought-after, hard good items. And they're not competing with a lot of people. They'll have some kind of antique, vintage, even clothing, but unique one-offs, or they'll be selling vinyl records or old VHS tapes, or video games. Like electronics are really having a high sell-through rate. I think a lot of the people, and I'm not even saying, I know a lot of the people that I hear saying don't delist, relist, it's not good. I know those people have they're coming from a place where they're selling low volume, high cost, not high volume, low cost. So they don't have a high volume based business. They're not dealing with clothing. They don't have thousands of listings of oversaturated clothing where they're competing with thousands of other sellers to sell their American Eagle jeans. And clothing has a very low, slow sell-through rate. I've said this before, but Keith and I do a clothing guide, a jeans guide, and a plush guide. We update it every single year with information from Terapeak and eBay, and we figure out the sell-through rate and the average selling price on a lot of the clothing items and brands, men's, women's, shirts, jeans, all of that. And if you're interested, our guides are for sale in the description. But we figured that most clothing brands take 6 to 9 months or longer to sell. And it's a whole different ball game. So also keep that in mind. Take it with a grain of salt. When you hear the experts in the industry saying your listings aren't really stale, they were stale to begin with, the relisting is not the way to go, take it with a grain of salt. Number one, figure out what they're selling. And number two, do your own experiments and get your own data for yourself. Someone who is selling very unique, one-off hard good items is going to have a completely different experience on eBay than a high volume, low cost clothing seller in a very oversaturated competitive market. If I have an original Bob Marley vinyl record or an 8-track, there's probably only one or two other ones listed on eBay. I'm not even competing with anybody, right? That's way different. So keep that in mind. Now I'm going to get into my proof. My proof is in the pudding and what we did. So when we started in 2017, we always did delist, relist. Back in the day before there was List Perfectly, we would just take anything that was ending within 24 hours. Every morning we would check, we would end it, and we would put it back into eBay. Nowadays we have a different system to do it. We do use the List Perfectly catalog, and we do check for our oldest listings. And I do about 10 a day, and Keith will do about 20 to 30 a day. And we end them and we relist them on 5 platforms. So our system's a little bit different. But when we first started in 2017, we did do the delist, relist. And, on average, every day, maybe one item of what we just relisted would sell on eBay. Maybe one would sell on Poshmark or Mercari when we started cross-posting. But we had a pretty good success rate of these 10 items are 6 months old, 9 months old. Let's end them and relist them. Oh, we just sold one on Poshmark, one on Mercari, one on eBay. You know what I mean? So 3 maybe would sell within the next day or 2 of being relisted. I'm not saying that same day or within the hour, but I'm saying it would get them attention and it would take a couple of days, but they would sell. And it was a consistent, we could calculate it, we could see it, we could graph it, we could keep track of it. Every time we delisted and relisted 10 items, 1 to 5 of them would sell because we're doing it on 5 platforms over the next few days. So when we were in Florida, we heard that the newest opinion in the industry was that delisting and relisting was bad for the algorithm. Don't do it. Your items aren't stale. Instead, update your items. So for 9 months, we did. We used List Perfectly to do it because it is a really good inventory management system. If you're not using List Perfectly, you guys know what I'm going to say. You should be. You can try it for 30% off with our code flippinhippos if you want to see what all the fuss is about, because it's a great program. But so for 9 months in Florida, I would take my 10 items and I would end them and relist them on the other 4 platforms. But on eBay, all I would do was switch something around in the title, switch some pictures around. I would do something to the listing to make it slightly different, and then I would just update it. And you can do this directly on eBay, or you can do it through List Perfectly because they have an update feature as well. And those items didn't sell on eBay. Where in the past they had. So if I delist and relist 10 items on eBay on Monday, 1 or 2 of those items is going to sell by Wednesday or Thursday, just because it got preferential treatment. It was a new listing. It got pushed up in the searches. But for that whole 9 months, I was not delisting, relisting on eBay. Neither was Keith. We were just taking our listings every day that we were delisting, relisting everywhere else and just updating them on eBay. And we were still averaging 1 or 2 sales on the other platforms every few days from those. But eBay just went. So you're telling me that those items weren't stale, and all I had to do was update something to wake it up in the algorithm to push it up in the searches, but yet they were still sitting there 9 months later. But for the 5 years prior to that, when we would delist, relist, we would sell a couple of items every few days. I don't buy it. Oversaturated items, used clothing sellers, your listings get stale. They absolutely, I don't care who says they don't. I don't care. I don't care. That's my opinion. And you can disagree with me, but we tried it for 9 months and our sales went down. Our older items stopped selling altogether. And that just tells me that they do get stale. And I know your sell-through rate and everything depends on your items being seen and bought. You know, the more you sell, an active store is a happy store, all those platitudes. But you know how we're clearancing out our poop items. And if you haven't heard, I'll link the video for you at the end here. We're clearancing out our poop items right now. And the more we're selling, the more we're selling. So the stuff is clearing out and then the higher items are selling too. But when your stuff sits there for months and years and no one's buying it, it's dragging you down. It's dragging down your metrics. It's dragging down your sell-through rate. And one way to alleviate that is to clearance out poop or bad items. But good brands like Silver Jeans, you don't want to clearance out at 50% off. So just end and relist. That's my experience. Personally, when I experiment with our business and something doesn't work or does work for me, that data and that personal experience will resonate more profoundly with me than anything I hear from the experts, because the experts can say what they want, but if it doesn't work for our store or if it decreases our sales, I'm not going to do what the experts say. I'm going to do what has proven over time to increase our profits and sales. So you can do your own research in your own store if you'd like. But just keep in mind that if you are going to continue to delist or relist, there is such a thing as too much. I know people who do it every day, every week, every month. That's excessive. It does take 30 days for the Google bots to crawl your listings and put them into the Google searches. So you want to leave stuff up for at least 30 days to allow Google to catalog it. But then after that, maybe another couple of months so that you have the opportunity to be seen on Google searches. I have heard, and I don't have any proof because I don't really know how to prove it or do the data, but I have heard that Poshmark listings get onto Google faster. I don't know if that's true or not, but it has been said for years that it takes 30 days for a new listing on most of the platforms to be shown on Google. So even if you're delisting, relisting every 30 days, you're not even giving it time to be cataloged on Google and seen. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? So don't do this every week. Don't do it every month. Do it every 3 months, 6 months. You know what I mean? We do a minimum of 3 months. So it has to be at least 3 months old for us to delist, relist. Most of our items get to 6 months, 9 months old before we delist, relist because we have so many listings. So we're close to 2,000 listings, and I'm doing 10 a day and Keith's doing 20. And so I can show you real quick how old most of our stuff does get before we get around to it, just because we have so many listings. But I would say make sure your stuff is at least 30 days, but I would leave it beyond that. So you have a couple of months on Google. 3 months minimum. Longer if you can. Like, I'm not saying stuff does get stale, but you can leave it up for 6 to 9 months. Like I said, according to all the research that we did for our clothing guide every year since 2018, the majority of clothing brands and clothing items do take 6 to 9 months to sell. That's just how it is. That's just how long it takes. Clothing, again, is oversaturated, and it takes about 6 to 9 months to sell. So give it 6-9 months. Give everything a fair try, and then delist it, relist it. So you can see on here, we got stuff that hasn't been touched since April of 2022. Now these remotes, to be fair, I did end all of our remotes and I was putting them back in because they got mixed up in the move. A bunch of boxes got combined and it was a mess. So I ended every single remote listing we had and then went through them and put them back in. And these are ones that I never found. But as far as our clothing, you can see that shirt hasn't been touched since April of last year, May. So we have stuff going on close to a year even. Because we have so many active listings and we only do about 30 a day. So, 6 months, 9 months, a year, when we were really on top of stuff and caught up with it, 3 months, 6 months, but don't do it any sooner than that. Don't do it all the time. If you have fewer listings than us, then just keep an eye on them and make sure they're 3 to 6 months old at the very least, if not longer. You can purchase our clothing guide or our jeans guide if you'd like, and then you can have all of that information right at your fingertips, broken by brand, men's, women's. They're color coded, our guides, so it breaks it down into fast, slow, and medium sale through rates on all of these items, and you can kind of keep an eye. And when it hits, this brand should sell in 3 months. When it hits 3 months, 4 months, and it hasn't sold, you can delist, relist. So that is my opinion on the delist, relist. Do it. Don't do it excessively. Don't do it all the time. Don't do it often, but do it. It is absolutely necessary on Mercari and Grailed because of the way their systems are set up. Grailed with the bumping, Mercari with the offers. It has been proven time and again to work on Poshmark. But as far as our own personal experience and data, it has been proven time and again to work since 2017. A lot of the items that we delist and relist will sell on the various platforms. And when we stopped doing it for 9 months on eBay and only just updated the listings, our sales did go down. So keep that in mind. Keep in mind what you sell as well, but don't just parrot what you hear. That was like another good takeaway from this video. I want you guys to be open to experimenting and running tests on your own stores and your own businesses and keeping the data and doing what's best for you. Remember, you have to do something for more than 30 days to get accurate data. You can't just try it for a couple of days and be like, oh, free shipping doesn't work for me. But be willing to try all of the different things and see what works for you, because everybody's business is going to be different based on what you sell, your cost of goods, how much wiggle room you have for offers and stuff like that. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. Until next time, guys, go be productive, go delist and relist. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.